On April 3, 1974, Xenia, Ohio was a quiet city of about 25,000 people. It was a warm spring afternoon. Kids had just gotten out of school. Nobody expected what was coming. At around 4:40 in the afternoon, an F5 tornado dropped out of the sky and carved straight through the center of town. Winds hit 300 miles per hour. The funnel was 1,000 yards wide. It destroyed over 3,000 homes, 9 schools, and 9 churches. The Arrowhead neighborhood was hit the hardest, reduced to nothing but rubble. In one house, a family took shelter in their basement, but the tornado sheared the top off a neighboring house and dropped it on theirs. 3 of their 4 children didn't survive. In total, 34 people were killed and over 1,000 were injured. Half the city was gone. President Nixon flew in and said it was the worst destruction he had ever seen, worse than any earthquake or hurricane. And the scariest part? Xenia had no tornado sirens, no warning system at all. That disaster became the catalyst for overhauling tornado warning systems across the entire country. On June 8, 1953, the city of Flint, Michigan had no idea a tornado was possible. There was no warning system, no sirens. At 8:30 in the evening, an F5 tornado touched down northwest of the city and tore an 18-mile path straight through the Beecher neighborhood. It was half a mile wide, with winds over 200 miles per hour. The Beecher district was a working-class area filled with single-family homes. Entire blocks along Coldwater Road were obliterated. Every home on both sides of the street was gone. 116 people were killed, making it the deadliest tornado in Michigan history. 55 of the dead were under 20 years old. At least 20 families lost more than one member. 2 fathers came home from their shifts at the auto factories to find their entire families gone. So many people died that the National Guard Armory was converted into a temporary morgue. Families waited outside in the rain for hours to identify the bodies. The Flint tornado held the record as the last single tornado to kill over 100 people in the U.S. for nearly 60 years, until Joplin in 2011. On May 11, 1953, the same year as Flint, an F5 tornado struck Waco, Texas. But this one hit at the worst possible time. Late afternoon on a weekday, right when downtown was packed with workers and shoppers. The locals weren't worried. An old legend from the Waco Indians said the surrounding hills made the city tornado-proof. A local forecaster even said there was no cause for alarm at 1:30 that afternoon. 3 hours later, the sky went black. The tornado slammed into the heart of downtown, and buildings that were never built to handle those winds collapsed instantly. 30 people died in a single furniture store when the roof caved in. Bricks piled 5 feet deep in the streets. Some survivors were trapped under rubble for over 14 hours. A woman named Lily Matkin was pulled out alive after more than 14 hours, only able to wiggle her feet the entire time. In all, 114 people were killed and nearly 600 were injured. But from this disaster came something crucial. Radar operators at Texas A&M had detected a hook echo on their screens before the tornado hit. It was one of the first times radar was linked to tornado formation. That discovery, combined with the death toll in Waco, Flint, and Worcester, Massachusetts that same year, forced the creation of the modern tornado warning system. On April 27, 2011, a massive wedge tornado touched down in rural Alabama and began moving northeast toward the city of Tuscaloosa. It grew to 1.5 miles wide. Wind speeds hit 190 miles per hour. What made this tornado different from the ones that came before it was that the whole world watched it happen in real time. TV helicopters captured the funnel live as it plowed through neighborhoods. People filmed it on their phones. Meteorologist James Spann broadcast non-stop on Alabama television, pleading with viewers to take shelter. The tornado carved an 80-mile path through Tuscaloosa and into the suburbs of Birmingham. Entire apartment complexes were flattened. Well-built homes were swept off their foundations. 6 University of Alabama students were among the 64 people killed. Over 1,500 were injured. The damage was estimated at $2.4 billion, making it the costliest tornado in U.S. history at that time. President Obama visited and said he had never seen devastation like it. And the Tuscaloosa tornado was just one of 362 tornadoes that touched down during the 2011 Super Outbreak, the largest tornado outbreak in American history. If there's one town in America that knows tornadoes, it's Moore, Oklahoma. On May 3, 1999, an F5 tornado tore through the southern suburbs of Oklahoma City and hit Moore with winds measured at over 300 miles per hour by a Doppler radar truck. It was on the ground for nearly 90 minutes, cutting a 38-mile path and destroying over 8,000 homes. 36 people were killed. That event was so extreme that the National Weather Service invented a brand new type of alert, the tornado emergency. It had never been used before. After the 1999 tornado, the city spent $12 million building storm shelters across the area. Then, on May 20, 2013, another EF5 tornado hit Moore on a frighteningly similar path. 2 elementary schools were struck directly. 7 children died at Plaza Towers Elementary. 24 people were killed in total, and over 1,000 homes were destroyed again. One resident told reporters, "You're not supposed to go through this twice in your lifetime." Moore became the first city in America to adopt building codes specifically designed to resist tornado damage. But the question everyone asks about Moore is the same. Why does it keep happening to the same town? On the evening of April 5, 1936, a massive F5 tornado dropped out of the sky and headed straight for Tupelo, Mississippi. It was 3 blocks wide with winds over 300 miles per hour. The tornado tore through the residential neighborhoods of North Tupelo, wiping out everything in its path. Entire families were killed in their homes. The worst-hit area was Gum Pond, where homes were swept into the water and a majority of the victims' bodies were found. 216 people were killed and over 700 were injured. Among the survivors was a 1-year-old boy named Elvis Presley. His mother Gladys had grabbed him and taken shelter while his father Vernon was out of town looking for work. Their small shotgun shack in East Tupelo somehow survived mostly intact. Gladys later told Elvis he was spared because he was destined to do something great. Decades later, when another tornado hit Mississippi in 1975, Elvis threw a benefit concert that raised over $100,000 for the victims. But the storm system that created the Tupelo tornado wasn't done. It moved east overnight, and the next morning it hit Gainesville, Georgia, killing another 203 people. In 2 days, the 1936 outbreak killed over 450 people across the South. It remains the second deadliest tornado outbreak in U.S. history. On May 22, 2011, less than a month after the Tuscaloosa disaster, an EF5 tornado touched down near Joplin, Missouri. It was a mile wide, with winds reaching 200 miles per hour. And it did something that very few tornadoes have ever done. It made a direct hit on a densely populated city. The tornado ripped through the center of Joplin in a matter of minutes. It destroyed St. John's Regional Medical Center while patients were inside. Staff threw themselves over patients to shield them. The hospital's emergency generators failed. Doctors performed emergency procedures in pitch darkness. Outside, the destruction was total. Over 7,000 homes were destroyed. Cars were wrapped around trees. An entire neighborhood called Harmony Heights was wiped completely off the map. 158 people were killed, making it the deadliest single tornado in the United States since 1947. What stunned researchers was how quickly it intensified. The tornado went from formation to peak strength in just minutes, giving people almost no time to react even with modern warning systems. The city rebuilt, but the scar is still visible from satellite imagery years later. The tri-state tornado of March 18, 1925, is not just the deadliest tornado in one state, it's the deadliest tornado in American history, period. On that afternoon, a massive tornado formed in southeastern Missouri, crossed the Mississippi River into Illinois, and continued into Indiana. It traveled 219 miles in about 3.5 hours, maintaining contact with the ground the entire time. That's the longest continuous tornado path ever recorded. The problem was, in 1925, nobody even knew what to call it. The word tornado wasn't used in weather forecasts because officials worried it would cause panic. There were no warnings, no sirens, no radar. People had no idea it was coming. The tornado was up to a mile wide and moved at 60 to 70 miles per hour, faster than most cars at the time. The town of Murfreesboro, Illinois, was hit the hardest, with 234 people killed in that single town alone. The entire town of Parrish, Illinois, was wiped off the map. In Griffin, Indiana, the tornado killed 26 people in a town of just 400. Across its entire path, 695 people were killed, over 2,000 were injured, and more than 15,000 homes were destroyed. Nearly 100 years later, no tornado has come close to that death toll. The tri-state tornado remains the single deadliest tornado the United States has ever seen, and a reminder of what can happen when a storm arrives and nobody knows it's coming.